Hello and good morning. My name is Steve Pugh. It's Friday, the 22nd of September 2023. I run a startup, and basically our mission is to make business education accessible to 5 billion people worldwide. That we love universities, we love most kind of professional training providers that help teach and upskill people in business skills and marketing and strategy and all that kind of good stuff. But the sad truth is that unless you can afford to pay, most of them don't care. They just send you away, and it's a purely 100% commercial organization. At Roadmap MBA, what we do is that we have a completely free tier where you can learn a full business curriculum with all of the same information anywhere in the world completely for free. We do that as a social impact startup, so it's our mission to help empower communities and people around the world, really help them build a better life for themselves. We have users in 56 countries now. I'm based here in the UK, in the northeast of England, in a city called Newcastle. And basically what we do is that we do various different podcasts and live streams where we talk about interesting stuff that might be of interest to you. And we also take a lot of questions and also that kind of thing as well. So I do these every week on a Friday morning, but we also do lots of different podcast interviews and that kind of thing as well. And if you get in touch, it should pop up on the screen here as well. So I'd love it if you say hello and almost let me know from where you're watching in the world. So what I tend to do on a Friday is pick interesting stuff that's happened throughout the week, give you a bit of an update on my journey, because it's one of those classic things that I put out a post when I was on holiday last week, especially on LinkedIn. The people only ever tell you the good stuff as well. For me, it's not always easy. I kind of do this on my own. I'm a management consultant by trade, so people hire me to run their corporate strategy and to help their companies grow, and that's my day job. But my passion project is a lot of the stuff with the roadmap and what we're trying to do. And we've got some really cool stuff happening with charities and different organizations, which you'll see me talk about in future weeks as well. So the three topics that I've kind of chosen to talk about today, the first one is actually dealing with pressure and stress. This is something which affects almost all of us. You know, you do get some psychopaths out there that just don't feel pressure or stress, and good for them. But that's not me. And it's also, I think there's different types of pressure and stress. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, my own personal experience, and then give some tips and tricks to help. We're actually going to talk about, so I play basketball in my spare time. I have done for 25, 27 years. And actually, I had a trial for the GB team back on the 3rd of September. So now that I'm over 40, there's a whole veterans world of professional, it's not professional sport, but veterans world of sport. And there's something called FIMBA basketball, which is for masters basketball. So back in September down in London, I had a trial for the GB team. And luckily, I got invited back. So my next one is in 3 weeks in Nottingham. But what I thought would be really interesting is actually to talk about my experience of that, not for the basketball stuff, but actually everything else, and what almost really good looks like, because I think there's some really good kind of business lessons to learn with that one. And then something else that I've done yesterday, day before, and it's actually about reducing the risks of cybercrime, identity theft, and hackers, because actually it's something very relevant to all of us. That actually, as I said at the start, I like to talk about stuff that I've actually done this week, so it's very relevant, and I'll also kind of share my experience as well. In terms of an update on some of the stuff that I've been up to, you might have seen the interview I did with Patricia, who's a tech and ed tech expert, on the podcast on Monday. If you didn't, that's cool. If you go onto YouTube, you can basically check out the full interview, or we have lots of different highlight clips. There you've got someone that very entrepreneurial, started their first business at 17, and actually has just worked on loads of different stuff, from government contracts through to the startup accelerator that I'm involved with at the moment called Dohe. And actually Patricia, she's from Poland, really fantastic person to kind of just learn from and learn her best experience. So you can check that on YouTube or iTunes, Google, Spotify, all of the other kind of regular podcast things as well. The Roadmap MBA kind of foundation course is now also live. I tried to launch it a few weeks ago, but we had a few technical gremlins, so I kind of took it down. We put it back up again. The reason for that existing is that, based on feedback from some of our partners, a lot of the traditional roadmap content that we cover, like this, it's really good stuff, but it's not as relevant to people right at the start of their journey. So what that they, different charitable partners, asked for was that could we do a really kind of foundational level business course, which covers both business and careers, which helps, helps people get started, helps people think about pricing, all of that kind of good stuff. You could probably do the whole thing in 2 hours, if not less. But it's just to give people a grounding before you jump into the kind of more meaty content. And that's now live, so you can check that out completely free on roadmapmba.com. And then the other thing which I wanted to kind of touch on as well. So I'm part of a startup accelerator called Dohei. It's launched out of South Korea. And essentially it's all about supporting edtech businesses and startups, basically go on their journey, help them get traction, help give them mentoring to kind of figure out this complicated startup landscape. And genuinely, like, I can't speak for the others, but it's been a really interesting process, that because I understand business pretty well, I understand my business pretty well, and actually I think I've got a good feel for the consumer, because in many ways I have been and I am, a consumer of learning and development kind of content. But the one thing I don't necessarily know a lot about is venture capital, finance, arguably the startup world, and there's that whole ecosystem, or even like education in its traditional form. I don't know a huge amount about that. So it's been really interesting to work with my mentor, Mike. So shout out to Mike. But then also touch in with a lot of the other team as well. So hi Jess, or anyone else that might pop in and see this. We had a chat with all of the cohort on Wednesday, and Jess mentioned about the live streams, and they pop up, and I said that I enjoy doing them. So say hello if you cannot see this as well. But it's that kind of thing of where we all go on our own business journey. Most of us kind of know what to do, but actually just having someone to bounce off and challenge and support. And with Mike, we're pretty, I'm not going to say hardcore, but I kind of know what's going to work, and so does he. That it's almost where, rather than take steps 1 to 20, we've almost jumped to step 7, because we know 1 to 6 won't work. But it's that kind of trying to find a mentor or a coach that kind of works with you, that, that the end goal is almost the success or failure of the business, and just trying to get to where we're trying to get to as quick as possible. And the irony is that one of the things that I keep kind of talking about is that I actually don't mind if the business fails. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. It's, for me, if we tried every avenue, we did the live streams, we did all the stuff we wanted to do, we approached all the partners we wanted to speak to, we did all the right things. If at the end of the day, it just doesn't stack up, the world changes, AI takes over, or whichever, as long as I feel like I've done my best, I'm kind of cool with that process. So even at 6 o'clock this morning, I was kind of second guessing, do I do the live stream? Do I not? Can I be asked to do it, etc.? And I thought, no, I'll go on, I'll do it, because it's not easy to kind of just stand up and do all of this on your own. But actually, I thought I would do it. But actually just having a bit of, support and guidance does kind of really help. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the first topic today, but if you have any questions, comments, anything, please drop in the chat. It should pop up on the screen. I'd love to say hello, and yeah, I will kick off. Okay. So on the course, about 3 weeks ago now, people can ask questions. We have live classroom sessions and mentoring and different stuff. And one of the ones that came in from a guy who's kind of towards the start of his career, and he was dealing with some pressure and stress, and he was worried about it. And almost for him, he wanted someone to kind of bounce something off someone who's maybe a bit more experienced, just to get that third party opinion and feedback on it, to help them kind of frame where they're at. And actually, I thought it was really interesting that as you go through your career, I think it's a really funny one, that as your career progresses, you actually deal with different types of stress. So largely when you start your job, it's to do with learning the job, dealing with the people, and kind of just doing your job. But as you progress through an organization, as you get to management and senior management, now I do less of doing the job and more of looking after the corporate strategy, paying everyone's wages, any health and safety things, commercial risk. But it's that funny thing that actually the risks and that change over time. And in some ways, your ability to deal with pressure and stress, it can increase, probably not for everyone, But your ability, then the tools that you have to deal with challenges, I think changes, and that really helps when you can mentor someone and talk about different things. That actually everyone deals with stress, and it was something I kind of wanted to talk about now, but I also talked about on the call. But actually, when we could kind of rationalize the problem, he left feeling a lot better and actually quite excited about tackling the challenge. So because of that, I thought it could be a really interesting topic to kind of talk about. So the first thing, what is, what type of stress is it? Because for me, there are different types, and this is a really important thing, that you can have one-off. So you have your normal job, your normal life experience, a random freak one-off thing happens that then you have to deal with. But that probably won't happen again, or if it does, it's on a very rare occurrence that you can't predict. So because you can't predict it, you almost then just have to kind of deal with it. But that's in stark contrast to pressure and stress, which is almost continuous, it's regular. That could be politics in the office. It could be the job that you do. I imagine if you're a firefighter and you go and fight fires every day, it's a key part of your job that you're going to be exposed to fire and risk. Therefore, that's a different challenge to a freak one-off kind of thing. And for me, this is really important because actually we can change jobs. You can learn more about yourself as you go through your career and almost kind of grow up. That I know I'm very good at some things and not so good at others. But the truth is you can almost craft your job. So prime example for me is that I'm a chartered mechanical engineer. I work a lot in the offshore energy industry. So a lot of my job as a director is to look after health and safety, HR, commercial risk, and also cash flow and basically business kind of risk. Although that can be very stressful, the way that I almost kind of put myself in the shoes, if you look at the team of people that work within the business, am I the most qualified person to take on that risk and handle that for the team? And the answer is yes. But actually, because I have the tools to deal with that better than anyone else, I'm supporting the team by tackling something that I happen to be really good at. When we deliver short, quick turnaround offshore energy equipment, suppliers let you down, couriers don't like you, or they don't deliver on time, or stuff gets caught in customs, or a supplier delivers late. Ironically, because I care about the customer and I care about the project and what we deliver at the end of the day, although I can do that, I don't enjoy that. So I've ran projects in the past when we've been a bit short-staffed. And the irony is I stress more about delivering one piece of kit to go down to Plymouth by a certain date and all the stuff that goes wrong when people let you down. That affects me more than really high-level commercial strategy, business risk, etc. And that's just because I'm a different type of animal, where some people don't care about the other thing. But that's actually where it's really interesting to almost find a job which is relevant to you. But if you really don't enjoy doing something, you can switch jobs. But actually this comes down to the fact of, if it's a key part of your job, you maybe change jobs, change careers, or craft your job to maybe do less of the bit that you hate. But also, if it is a one-off freak accident, actually, nobody could predict that. And then it's a case of how you can then deal with the pressure, deal with that kind of thing. So as a key example, this one particular guy who got in touch, he was really stressed because there was an accident on site. Nobody was seriously hurt, so nothing really bad happened, just to kind of throw that out at the start. But he was worried because this thing happened, senior management were going to come down, investigate, find out what happened, do the whole investigation, and to basically make sure it doesn't happen again. And essentially his pressure and stress was worried about, well, what will they think about me? What if they think I haven't done something correctly, etc. And I made the point that actually, as a director in a very similar business, what you want is just to make sure that it doesn't happen again, but actually just to find out and make sure everyone's okay, etc. And I made the point that actually, if you take control of the situation, you investigate it yourself, you follow procedures, you can demonstrate that the team did everything they were meant to do, etc., but almost take ownership of the situation. If anything, rather than it being a stressful situation, it could actually be an opportunity to shine, because realistically, if you are the leadership of that company and you've got a guy who's fairly young, but he's really taken ownership of a challenge which wasn't his fault, but shown great leadership, organization, told the truth, was accountable, if anything, that's a huge tick in the box for his CV, etc. And anyway, through the course of the call and the kind of mentoring, he actually left the call really confident that he could go away, tackle this challenge, and just through reframing the same thing into a potential for positive, he actually was quite excited about it. And this again comes down to the difference between a one-off thing that someone has to deal with. Prime example, if you are driving home, there's a car crash, and it needs someone to take charge, to look after it, call emergency services, make sure people are okay. If you feel you can, stepping up to take control and help is only a good thing. And it's just that kind of thing that, you know, with workplace pressures and stress, it is really useful to be able to frame the challenge that you kind of deal with. And actually, is it something you're best placed to deal with versus everyone else in your team? In which case, are you helping everyone out through stepping up? Or if you just have pressure and stress because you have a nightmare manager or boss that you don't get on with, are there ways that you can maybe mitigate that or get around it? Maybe HR, maybe talking to them, maybe, you know, try and build that relationship. But if it is a key regular part of your job and it just doesn't seem to ever change, maybe there are things that we can look at as well. So it was just a quick topic that I wanted to talk about pressure and stress and different ways to kind of deal with it. My name's Steve. If you check us out, we have got a business course called Roadmap MBA, and you can learn completely free business skills anywhere in the world. Check us out at roadmapmba.com. Okay. So one of the beauties of having a live stream, and then these all get clipped up, these all go onto YouTube. So this whole kind of show will turn into 3 probably different videos, which all get saved onto YouTube. It's part of the reason why I now have 1,200 videos on YouTube. But actually, you know, if you want to catch this up, but I like to talk about stuff that I've literally done this week, because it might be relevant for you. It might be that little tip or trick, which just makes you think about, oh, that could be useful, I could do that. So it's something that I wanted to kind of talk about. One of the big things which I've done this week is that I watch a lot of YouTube as well. I love stuff on special forces, hence why I've got the David Goggins signed picture up there. But special forces, army, like kind of intelligence related stuff. There's a guy called Andrew Bustamante who's a former CIA agent. I love to watch his stuff as well. And anyway, on one of these shows, it was the Sean Ryan show, they had this hacker on, and he was talking about how easy it is to actually steal people's Wi-Fi details, all of your bank details, everything about everything you can imagine, and almost how easy it is to do nowadays. And the truth is now at a point where I'm a business owner, we've got our house, we've got our car, we've got savings, we've got all this kind of different stuff. In theory, and I do YouTube, I'm a prime example that to potentially get targeted for hacking, identity theft, etc. And it was something that I realized that it was a weak point, a weak spot in my arsenal, in my behavior that I wanted to change. So as something that I've literally researched and done this week, I thought it was really relevant to kind of talk about. So one of the first tips and tricks to take control, and almost, you can never be 100% safe from attack, but the whole point is just be harder than the next guy. And chances are when people do phishing attacks and that kind of thing, they're probably going to go for the more vulnerable people. But actually the truth is, I learned this week that although I have fairly secure passwords, excuse me, so although I have fairly secure passwords, I did reuse them. And when I actually signed up to my password manager, which I'm going to talk about in a second, it looked actually that I'd reused the same passwords quite a few times. And it was that risk of where if someone can get into one of your accounts, chances are they might be able to get into lots of them. And it's easier than you think to find people's Facebook or their email, and then from their email they can get into their Amazon and their eBay, maybe their bank account, etc. So it's really important to kind of take control of this and almost just minimize the risk if you can. So the first tip is a password manager. So essentially what a password manager does, or a good one, it looks at all of your passwords across all of your accounts. So previously I was using Google Chrome, but all Google Chrome would do is save the passwords that I had and then put it into the form or the website when I needed it to. What it didn't do is tell me where the risks are, where the duplication is, are there any weak passwords, which might have been caught in a data leak and when, and all this kind of stuff. Azure Password Manager is a really encrypted way to do the same thing, but actually a good one also helps you refresh and update all of your passwords so they're all secure, but importantly, they're all different as well. So I did a Google search on best password managers 2023. The two top ones which came up, so the first one I tried was called 1Password. I believe Ryan Reynolds is an investor. It was reasonably priced. It had loads of really kind of great reviews. So I signed up, imported my passwords from Google Chrome, which is the way that you kind of suck them all in. But the one thing that I realized really early on is that of my 300 plus passwords, I would have had to go through and update them all individually. And I'm not being funny, that's a big kind of task. But also there was no help to do each one. It was almost that they would store the information. I might be wrong, but this was just my impression when I tried it, was that it was just a massive chore to do. Second on my list was one called NordPass, which is what the one I did end up going with. Their premium service is for 2 years. It was £42 here in the UK, but I thought that was reasonable. But the beauty is it does all the same thing. You can import all your passwords. It's quite secure in terms of how you set up your master password so nobody can get into that and you get your backups and whatever. But actually it had a really good tool so that if I go onto my Amazon, rather than me just create a password generator, yes, you have websites which have password generators on them, but it made it a seamless part of the same process. So on Wednesday, I went through and I started my biggest ticket items. So for instance, all my emails, my bank, my Amazon, my eBay, my LinkedIn, my Facebook, and a few of the others. And basically updated from what was probably a 8 to 10 character word, some uppercase, some lowercase, thing, which was repeated a little bit. So now almost every single one of my passwords is 60 characters long, just random junk in some ways. But what that does, it just removes the repetition of someone being able to get into one account and then being able to get into all of them. But actually, I now feel so much more secure. So actually, NordPass was really good for that. The one weakness that it currently has, which is thinking out loud, is that you still need a master password to get into your NordPass account. And that almost then from there sends out to the other stuff. There's still a risk that someone could get into that. But what you can get, and I'm about to order one off Amazon, it's called a YubiKey, and there are others. And basically it's a physical device which you plug into your machine or you tap on your phone with an NFC chip. But you need that physical tool to unlock the master vault where all your passwords are saved. So even if someone in Thailand or somewhere did get my password, they still can't get all my stuff. So that's something that I'm still going through, and I'm just going to double check different things. But the point is, you want to update your passwords every so often. Make them non-obvious, so you don't want your wife's name and the password or password 123 or whichever. But actually that's really important to do. The second one is multi-factor authentication. So now, if you try and log into my Google or Amazon or Facebook or LinkedIn or quite a few of the others, basically what it does, you put in the password, which you have to get correct, but then it texts my phone and says, input the 6-digit code from this. But what you're doing there is protecting yourself, because it means that, again, if a hacker in China gets your passwords, they still can't get into your stuff unless they also have your phone. But actually, multi-factor authentication isn't always turned on by default. So definitely kind of set that up if you can. The next one, which I've actually bought, it hasn't quite arrived yet, the hacker on the video I watched was talking about RFID chips, and especially now in the UK, I think the limit for contactless payment on your phone, or actually on your phone it's unlimited, but it uses Face ID on the iPhone. But actually it's still £100 on my credit card and my debit card. And you can get people that can steal those codes and therefore steal your money. So I've bought it was only £16, which is an RFID blocker wallet. So basically, if I'm ever on the tube in London and someone's in close proximity, they can't just tap you and steal all your stuff. So it's that element. And what we're starting to get into here is the physical side to protect you from identity theft and hackers and cyber crime as well. So last but not least, it's the physical side to it as well. So I mentioned the new wallet that I've bought, which is just to protect my cards, to prevent someone from zapping my details. It's a nice leather wallet, so it does the same as my current one, but just that extra level of protection, especially when someone's kind of recommended that maybe you should consider something. I'm one of these people, I don't mind doing it if it's a reasonable cost, but I know I would hate myself if I watched this video, decided not to update my passwords, and then next week got hacked and lost a ton of money and lost access to my business and my website and that kind of thing. So that's why it's really important to do. But the other thing that I was a little bit lax on as well is that I have an office here, which I'm in now, and also at home, and you get sent physical correspondence. So you get letters, you get bank statements, you get bills, you get Amazon deliveries, whichever, and often on them they have sensitive material. So they have your name and address, but also if it's a bank statement, they've got all your bank details. And there's a real risk of identity theft and someone pretending to be you, signing up for credit cards, doing all the nasty stuff that they could do. So another physical thing that I've kind of brought in is I've bought 2 shredders, one for here, one for home. So previously what I used to do is kind of just rip up some of the documents, put them in the recycling, fine. Now I'm going to make sure that I diligently shred and, destroy almost any public record of stuff that might go in the bin or externally, just to reduce that chance of someone finding out who I am, where I live, my bank details, etc. Because it's a risk that I just don't want to deal with, if that makes sense. And that makes sense both for corporate information as well. So if you're in a co-working office or a shared office like I am now, this isn't a particularly high profile one, but you never know what someone might do if they see stuff in the trash or the recycling or whatever. So it's a physical barrier to just help protect you. And last but not least is something that I've wanted to do for a while, is almost to get a fireproof safe for home to both protect the master keys for all my online stuff, but likewise I have 30 years worth of photos, I've got my passports, I've got my birth certificate, etc. That it's also the risk of fire and damage and stuff as well. That what it does, it'll be the safeguard protected, so that if my house gets set on fire, I still will have access to all my other stuff and the backups and all the different things that I can to get into those. But likewise, it's all the little things that I think just kind of add up. Some people won't be bothered at all by cybersecurity. Some people will be really paranoid. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. But as a prime example, my mum was in Vegas last week and she talked about how, I think it was the MGM Grand, the whole hotel, all their booking systems, all the hotel rooms, the casino, the theme park, everything got hacked and it all just got shut down. And they had to pay a ransom to kind of get back set up again. Yes, if you're a hacker, you're going to target the high profile people first. Of course you are, because that's where you're going to get the biggest impact. But actually, it was just something that when it was flagged, I thought, you know what, I'm going to put some things in place. I would love to know if you catch this on YouTube. What have you done to protect yourself from cybercrime, identity theft, and or hackers? I would love to know, like genuinely, please kind of let me know, because there might be something that I can kind of implement as well. And then if you catch this up on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, any of the other kind of platforms, please reach out and say hello as well. Okay. So how's everyone's Friday going? Hopefully you've had a good week. It's been quite a stressful week. It was my first week back from holiday, which was last week we went to Spain. But it's quite nice to get back into the swing of things and get a routine. I started with a new client yesterday, sorting out the global corporate strategy for a really big entity, which is very cool. And it's just, strangely, although this is just me stood in a room talking to a camera, I actually quite enjoy doing these as well. For me, it's part of that. I have a dream and ambition where I might be in 5-10 years time, and I actually just see it as practice for public speaking, presenting, whatever. And I kind of enjoy it. It's just I enjoy the creativity of it. But if you kind of watch any of this, please let me know in the comments, drop me a like, anything, because otherwise it can be quite tough just stood up talking to a camera on your own with no response, but it is what it is. So one of the topics that I wanted to talk about, I've played basketball for 25 plus years. I've played at a pretty good level. I was first team captain at university and then playing local league, D1 and others in the northeast of England. But I'm good, but I'm not brilliant. I play with some really elite players, and the truth is you can tell the difference between what I class as a proper elite player, which is your kind of BBL level, and then everyone else. But one of the things that really kind of got me excited is that I had my 40th birthday in June. So when you turn 40, it opens up whole different leagues that you basically have something called Masters Basketball, which is kind of, some places do plus over 35s, but generally it's kind of over 40s, where basically it's a league of people that are all in that age group. And essentially you play basketball as that kind of thing. But what happened that through, passing the age group and becoming 40 myself, I'm now eligible to play, but it also opens up new challenges and new opportunities for things like the FIMBA GB team, which actually previously when I was 35, I couldn't access. So one of the things that was quite interesting is that we had the Vets League here in Newcastle. I joined a new team for that. We had 5 games, and luckily I finished top scorer in the league. I averaged, well, I didn't average 100 points. I scored 100 points over 5 games. So I averaged 20 points a game. My best game was 27 points against a team called Kenton. But what that did, it gave me the confidence that I have a lot of friends that play for the different GB teams, the different age groups, so over 55s, over 60s, men's and women's. And it was just a goal I wanted to strive towards, because realistically for the past 10, 15 years, when I left university, I was playing basketball just for fun. And whilst that's fine, and it's good to run around, and it's good for a hobby, having something which is a genuine North Star goal to aim for, which is kind of out of reach in some ways, is actually quite attractive to me. So I wanted to go in and try this Vets League to basically, if I would have just been average out of there's probably 60 odd players who played in the league, I wouldn't then embarrass myself to then try out for the GB team if I was just average within the age group. Luckily, I did quite well. And then also the team that I currently play for, most of the guys are 18 to 24, give or take. But because of that, I'm used to training with much younger, fitter, faster players. That actually what I found is that when I transitioned to the Vets League, I've been playing at a higher level, certainly a faster level, that actually really kind of set me apart. So I'm really quite excited about that. But anyway, so on the 3rd of September, I went down to London for a trial with the FIMBA GB team. So it was a combination of the over 35s and the over 40s. And from here in Newcastle, that's a good 6.5 hour drive. So we stayed in the hotel, went down, and basically I tried out. And what I was really fascinated about was the setup, how it worked, but also I think there's a lot of kind of business lessons to kind of share as well. So the first thing is it brought people together from all across the country. We have people from Brighton, Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, all over the place, coming together to basically train in the in the pursuit of a team, which then plays in international competition. But that's fascinating because although you will get to know the team, it's almost like the best people of the age group coming together once a month throughout the country to kind of play and train together. That in itself was pretty intimidating. Turning up and seeing guys with the full GB kitting, Great Britain on their training jerseys, is actually quite intimidating. It's an imposter syndrome thing where a lot of people, when they start a business, they worry, am I good enough? Do I fit in? Do I deserve to be here? Why do they, value my opinion, etc.? And I felt the same as almost going into that room. I was like, oh, I felt out of my depth. What was interesting though was that it was a 3-hour session in a circa 28-degree sports hall. And after about an hour, I realised, no, I deserve to be here skill-wise. It was really interesting to see, but it was just that intimidation of trying something new But actually, after a while, finding your feet and thinking, you know what, actually, this is quite interesting. You know, I feel comfortable here. I deserve to be here. On a separate thing, which is quite funny. So I'm 6'3", but on my current team, I often play either the 4 or the 5. So one of the bigger positions. I'm 15 stone. I know how to use my weight. So actually that kind of works. But then you go to a much bigger, better team, and then suddenly the bigs are actually big, the bigs are actually 6'10", etc. That now I can play a different position. And if you don't play basketball, that might not make any sense to you. But it was almost that as you kind of level up and try different things and expose yourself into different arenas, you realize that there's always a bigger fish, if that makes sense. And I think that's quite a good business analogy, that I think in some ways you might start a business with one person, but then as you grow, there's always going to be a bigger business, a bigger competitor. And I just thought it was a funny thing that when you then suddenly go into see like the best of the best for your age group or category, I thought that was quite interesting. One of the big things which really kind of stood out was actually to do with fitness. So skill-wise, you did have some very skilled players in terms of what you would normally class as good elite basketball players, shooting, dribbling, whichever. But the one thing that really kind of showed up was about the fitness level generally of the group. That I had COVID like the week before, so my cardio was pretty shot, and also I was recovering from a sprained ankle. But what was really interesting, it showed the difference between good and great looks like, and actually that's quite a big gulf. But I also found it quite inspirational because I thought, well, actually, if I can go work hard, train hard, and just hustle. So don't go and expect to be the best player, but actually if on any sports team or any team in general, if you have that one person that works really hard, they put in the effort, they do all the right things, they're great to kind of be around. And that's the role I want to play. So actually, I've tried to cut down on my McDonald's, I've increased my exercise, I've got my spinning bike right there. But actually just seeing what excellence looks like was really kind of fascinating. And that also includes with the setup. So at the GB setup, what they had is that they had 2 coaches, they had a business manager, there was a physio with a full physio table at the edge of the room, and then actually just the general organisation of the whole thing was super impressive. That actually, again, when you go from what you class as the amateur ranks to the pros, the same will be true in business. You have people that kind of learn their craft and they kind of just do what they think is the right thing to do, maybe what they've done for a while. But if you can learn the best principles, best policies, best things from different people around the world, you can become more professional, you can become more efficient in what you do. And actually it will make you better either at basketball or business through just seeing and learning what good and excellent looks like. Actually, I thought that was really kind of interesting to look at. Interestingly enough, we also, although we did do basketball stuff, of course we did, they expect people to know what they're doing. So they didn't teach you how to play basketball. Of course they're not, it's the GB team. But the focus on teamwork and culture was really, really impressive. So what they want is that if you're going to go to international competitions together, they don't want people to go off on their own, not spend time with the group, be a loner. They want people to make friends, look after each other, do stuff together, make sure people are okay. And I was really impressed with the amount of focus that went into that throughout the whole session. Was more than I'd ever seen before. And I think that's also true for business, that you can have a great team and great individuals who have great skills, but actually what you largely want is people that like to work together, they look out for each other, they work together, and actually just to build a really good culture is something that I didn't expect to see in high level sport, but actually it was really kind of fascinating to look at. And relating to this, they made a special effort. I mean, they actually made a big point about it, is that there was a few new people there and there's a few people that have been there for quite a long time. But they want people to get to know each other, go and say hello. And even to the point where when we had water breaks, they were scoring the team on how much like communication and stuff that we did. And one guy went off to just go outside because it was really hot, have a drink, I think make a phone call and then come back. But they actually always punish the team because they don't want people going off on their own. They want people to look after each other and do stuff together. And I just thought it was a really interesting kind of work ethic and that kind of thing. And just as like a sum up, what was just really fascinating, hi Rob, was actually just to look and see what good and excellence and what great kind of looks like. And actually, you can apply so much of this to business that actually it's the teamwork aspect, it's the culture, it's looking after each other, it's working hard, but then also identifying your weak points and where do you need to improve. So for me, my big one is fitness. That our next session is in Nottingham on the 7th of October. So I've been doing crazy kind of fitness just to get ready for that because I was arguably injured next time. But actually, just as a personal goal, it's really nice to have something to aim for. That me personally, one day to maybe get the jersey and actually playing a proper game is a massive goal to work for. And it's given me a bit of a new fire and a light to kind of just work hard and work towards outside of work kind of stuff. I think that's it and what I was going to kind of cover today. I didn't realize I'd been talking for 38 minutes. But it was just something that, as someone that is passionate about sport, I know a lot of business people are, when you actually kind of expose yourself to new things and you see how different people do things at a higher level, it just opens up new doors that you didn't even know or knew existed to chase and follow. And it was just something I wanted to share. What I'll continue to do, but obviously not in a boring, dull way, is just share the stuff that I learned moving forward and how that kind of works. If you do check out me or any of our stuff, so my name's Steve Pugh, you can follow me on all the socials. We've got a business called Roadmap MBA, and we are here to make business education accessible to businesses and people around the world. You can join our full course with all the live classroom sessions multiple times a week to help develop your team. It starts at just £299 per year, per person per year, and that involves 4 sessions a week where basically you can work as fast or as slow as you want. And we also do a buy one gift one, lots of carbon offset and other stuff as well. If you check out roadmapmba.com, you can hopefully find out everything there. So have a wonderful weekend, have a great time off if you're going to do anything special, and yeah, I will see you in a few weeks. All right, cheers guys, bye bye.